Good morning. It is July 4th, 2021, and this is my midsummer update for our garden in the Verde Valley of Arizona. The good news is we did get everything in and all of our beds ready and everything planted this spring. So, the monsoons have started, so that's been pretty exciting. We're getting, some humidity, and it's a cool, overcast 80 degrees this morning, which is pretty nice. Alright, for the tour. The first bed here is our mixed melons. So we've got a bunch of different types of cantaloupe types, lots of different colored watermelons, mostly things on the small to medium size. Nothing has ripened yet, but as you can see if you come down in here, there's a lot of little tiny melons all starting to ripen. And if we come all the way over here on the trellis, which I think trellising is a good idea for these little melons. I think this one is a Kajari melon. It's coming along. And then over here is a big lemon drop melon, which is probably going to be our first ripe one. And in the center, we've got a couple of different types of corns, decorative corn and sweet corn for eating, and amaranth, a few different types of amaranth. That's this bright red. That's actually one we can use for dye, which will be kind of fun to play with. And then this other long bed over here is all of our different winter squashes. And as you can see, some of these are starting to come along. We've got one big giant pumpkin in here, and a few Hubbard squash, pumpkins, and some spaghetti squash. What else is in there? Sweet meat, boar pumpkin, things that'll be good for soup, things that we'll store for the winter. And then over here, we'll get to the garden beds. I did 3 beds of tomatoes, and this is all sort of an experiment where I have large, medium, and small to see what's going to grow here, what's going to produce. Right now, this is the larger tomatoes, and we're definitely getting a little bit of fruit set, but not a lot of ripe ones. And inside, the basil is happy as can be. So tons of basil planted in with these tomatoes. And then the medium tomatoes, they're producing quite a bit. They seem to be the winners. And so I did about 20 different varieties, and we'll figure out which ones really are the keepers, as well as hopefully get some local seeds. Figure out what's going to do the best. Here's a nice looking one. This is mostly cherry tomatoes. I'm not getting a ton of cherry tomatoes, but a couple of weeks ago it got to 113 degrees, and I think that did some damage to these. So they're recovering. And speaking of recovering, my summer squash also took a big hit during the heat wave and had squash bugs. So I cut all of it way back and put some soap on it, put some diatomaceous earth, and now we're getting giant zucchinis again, and lots and lots and lots of these little yellow crookneck squash, and down here there's a little lemon squash. And so yeah, that's been very successful. I'm happy that these were all able to come back. Onions, I don't know how they're doing. They're not really bulbing. I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure out what things they need for fertilizers, and they're not, we lost about 10%, but there's 3 different varieties in here, and this is an experiment, so we shall see. This bed is roselle and okra, and I wasn't sure if this roselle was going to make it, but now it likes heat. I know it likes heat, so it's starting to come along. This is a type of hibiscus that I think is supposed to bloom more in the fall, and we can make all kinds of jellies and jams and various things with it. I'm excited to try it out. Oh, there's a few tomatillos in here too, because I had forgotten to plant them, so those got a little later start. Okay, moving over here, so we have 9 of these beds. These are Birdie's garden beds. And it was a lot of work to fill these. I would say there's about 3,000 pounds of dirt in each one, so it was quite a bit of work. But, I only have to fill them once. So Okay, on to the next bed. This is peppers and eggplants. We are getting, well, the peppers are a little small, so again, I'm trying to figure out what they need to be fed. I've got 15 different types, and there's a few peppers coming along. I've had to actually replace a few that didn't make it. So again, it's sort of trying to figure out what works here. The eggplants definitely work here. They are absolutely covered, and it's great. We've been grilling them, made some baba ganoush. That's good stuff right there. These eggplants, very happy there. Cucumbers, they are mixed. We have discovered that these big giant minty melons or painted serpents or whatever you want to call them, they do wonderfully here. Regular cucumbers, not so much. We're getting kind of sad little ones. They're bitter because they don't like the heat, but you know, we've got another thing we did do is add this 30% shade cloth. That is making a difference. So we're going to keep trying. The plants are okay, they look alive, and we'll just see what happens. See, this looks like an actual normal cucumber that may taste good, who knows. And the last bed we have out here is currently just lots and lots of sweet potato, which is pretty cool because the sweet potato did great in the greenhouse last year. I know it likes heat, and so if we can get a big harvest of sweet potato here, it's going to be pretty nice. Speaking of the greenhouse, I can take you over there. I'm not doing as much inside, but one of the things I've been doing is trying to plant as many flowers as possible on the outside, both from seed and a few starts, and figure out what can handle it. So sunflowers are very happy here. They do great. So lots of sunflowers. We've got some hollyhocks that aren't so happy. These little canna lilies, they were doing okay. These are all ones I started from seed. So we've got these black-eyed Susans, little violas, and daisies. They're coming up. They're doing pretty well. So yeah, the flowers have definitely been experimental and just sort of throwing as much stuff in there as I can and just see what happens. I did put some sorghum in over here, and it likes it here. It's pretty happy. This was supposed to be a decorative, I think we cut it and use it as decoration for the fall. We'll see what we do with that. I don't know if I'm going to try to harvest it for sweetener. Could. And this side doesn't do quite as well, but again, I'm not going to give up on it. I do have a little echinacea coming in here. I've got some marigolds. I tried some garlic, but it's not really doing much. I do have some carrots growing under this cloth here, and they actually seem to be pretty happy, so I'll be checking on those later in the year. Well, my swamp cooler's just kicked in, so it's a little noisy over here in the greenhouse, but I'll take a quick peek. Let me open this up, and maybe I'll turn these off. Okay, there we go. And it's about the same in here. I am getting tons of kumquats, which is, I don't know, I never think of kumquats as something you get in July, but I guess that's when this tree produces. The herbs are, a lot of them going to seed, but still using them. The kale I have had to trim and trim again. It's looking a little tall and skinny, but it's still there. Lemon and lime trees. The lemon tree is actually making a few fruits. We'll see where that goes. I tried cucumbers in here, and I've been trying to hand pollinate them, but they are not producing cucumbers, so maybe that doesn't work. The inside sweet potatoes are very happy. Horseradish, doing great. We've got a few lettuce starts. Ginger in a pot. Tomato plant. That was actually a cutting from last year's tomato plant that did really well in here. A couple more eggplants. Peppers from last year, still growing. Another little kale. The lettuce, which took some damage from that heat wave too, because the coolers weren't quite working as they should. So this is starting to bolt, and I'm needing to replace it, although it's still pretty edible right now. potatoes, parsley, the last batch of carrots, a little bit of older chard, and that's what's happening inside. So this time of year, definitely more focusing on the outside, which is really nice, and just trying to see what happens inside. That is pretty much what we've got going on here, and I will check back in a month or so once we start harvesting, especially all these melons and squash and corn. Very excited about that. Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.